A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to films I should have talked about years ago. So now, what we're going to be doing is talking a bit about another not so well-known Disney film out there. A much more rare, obscure film out there from 1977. Unlike The Black Cauldron though, this one actually has had some decent reviews and whatnot. The Rescuers. This is in fact the story of a society, a grouping of mice that actually go out and try to rescue a young child, whom is in fact under a few threats. And while this movie does have itself a bit of a darker tone in comparison to most other movies that you'd see by Disney nowadays, for the time period, the Dark Ages were not a great time for Disney to be a part of. By the 1980s alone, Black Cauldron became a huge failure, making more than $20 million of a loss for the company. But this was a predecessor to it, and I do feel that The Rescuers deserves at least a bit more credit on that part. But when you really get down to it, it's not really saying a whole lot. When you think about how Ghostbusters became such a huge masterpiece and was followed upon by how a sequel actually wouldn't do very well, it's basically the sort of mindset that most people have. Whenever a movie becomes undeniably successful, there's always the chance that a sequel is going to forever ruin your entire outlook on a franchise. Speaking of which, The Rescuers actually did have a sequel made, but it wouldn't be for 13 years. That's right. The Rescuers Down Under wouldn't come out until 1990. By that point in time, the likes of John Hughes and whatnot, they would become even more successful than Disney. So, back to the first film now. These mice do have quite a few troubles they need to get past. They need to go across all sorts of adventures, trek their way through all kinds of troubles and all sorts of hazards that lie within them, because when it's a small world and you're a small creature, it's not like saying big fish in a small pond. It's more the other way around. A tiny fish in a gigantic pond. You have lots of world you need to explore. You have lots of things to overcome that most of us larger creatures could do nowadays. But in this case, I do feel like that they have well executed it. I also do appreciate the cast that they were able to put together for this one for the time period, with people such as Geraldine Page, Bob Newhart, and accompanying voices like Pat Buttram. So, for the time period, it made sense that they would rather avoid the likes of people like Robert Duvall, Al Pacino, John Wayne, pretty much. They, of course, could not afford that kind of people. They didn't have all the budgeting money in the world at the time. So it made sense to try and get whatever they possibly could get their hands on. Pretty much pay top dollar for anybody at all, then that could lead to a bankruptcy. So it made sense that for a dark period in your life, well, they actually did do what they could. And I do feel like that they have actually done better at this than most others. There probably won't be any other movies like this, because when The Black Cauldron came out, it was such a fail. But The Rescuers did at least make it out with a bit of profit. I do feel like that it's on par with the likes of other such hits from the Dark Ages, like Robin Hood and the Aristocats, and probably even The Jungle Book, which in and of itself became its own big success. Especially even after Walt Disney's death, it proved to be once and for all a time for Disney to actually do better in life. So in any way that you look at it, I do consider this to be better than most other Disney films that came around at this point in time. And with that in mind, there's not much else I could say. 6.9 out of 10.1 for KFN official scoring. At least within all nodes, I do feel like that this one will deserve better credit, and probably even more so than other people should give it. It does have ratings of its own, and it is well designed for what it is. A feature-length film targeted towards kids as well as families of all kinds. And with that in mind, I will make my departure. Until the next installment of Films I Should Have Talked About Years Ago comes by.